Fighting out of Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, Damien Brown.
What's up, folks? Welcome to the Wireless Podcast. I'm your host, Damien Brown, UFC and Army veteran. I created the Wireless Podcast to cover all things sport, lifestyle, physical and mental health. It's not about me, it's about the listeners. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook at Beatdown155 or subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Wireless Podcast, and hopefully we can produce some wicked content for you in the near future.
And welcome to our 9th episode, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're joined by Marcell, our local sports psychologist. How you going, man?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries, it's a pleasure. And Aaron Blackie, thanks for joining us, man. The man himself from Fight IQ.
You're welcome.
So I guess we didn't really. Aaron's got a few questions we're going to run by, and then we're going to kind of shoot back and forth between you and I guess, because it's an interesting way to get your thoughts on things, and then get like a fighter perspective as well from that. So basically, why don't you give us a bit of a rundown on how you got to where you are now?
Ooh, that's a long story. I don't know if we have enough time on this podcast for it.
There's no time limit.
There's no time. Okay. I used to box a long time ago, about 20 years ago now. And yeah, after a really bad loss, I couldn't seem to get that killer instinct back, you know. Plus the head trauma wasn't really fun. So gave up the competing, still trained, but was always fascinated with why I couldn't find that, you know, that eye of the tiger, animal instinct again after having like such a brutal, you know, knockdown loss. And I kind of got into sports psychology through curiosity, really, just a genuine fascination. I'm a big leaguey. I love my league. And it always fascinated me like how guys like Andrew Johns, you know, Cameron Smith, Alfie Langer, these small little guys can dominate the game when you compare them to some of the bigger boys that take the field. So, you know, what I would think was there's got to be something else going on upstairs. How do these guys navigate the field like that and, you know, not get hurt or poleaxed by these monsters?
Yeah, for sure.
And then see things that other players don't see, you know, where they find the space. Cameron Smith's a great example of, you know, being able to manage the tempo of a game. He knows how to speed it up. He knows when to slow it down. But the timing of it, how does he know that? So all these kind of little things. And the other, like whenever the Olympics are on, I love watching the 100-meter final, you know, the 100-meter gold medal race. And there's 8 lanes. They're all fast, right? And if you looked at their physical attributes across the board, there wouldn't be that much of a difference, really, in terms of power, strength, and speed. But in that moment, someone breaks the world record and 7 don't. You know, what is that? What's going on there?
Speaking about that in particular, do you think it's kind of odd that lanes 4 and 5 win a lot, right? In the middle. Isn't that odd? It's the same as swimming.
Yep.
There's got to be something to that. Like why when you're in lane 1 and lane 8, which commonly they put the people who trial or qualify for the final, the fastest will always go in the middle.
That's right, yeah.
They don't want anyone in lane 1 to win. But yeah, there's got to be some psychology to that as well, because, I mean, you're just in a pool. You just run on the same track. It's the same length. It's the same everything.
100%.
But, you know, the middle lanes always win.
Yeah. I think it's like what you said. It's the times. So the times they go in, the fastest guys usually go in the middle. But there's no reason why the guy in lane 8 or lane 7
can't win.
Yeah, or lane 1, sorry.
Yeah.
Can't pull out a performance. Maybe it's a mental block. Yeah, who knows? And that's why I kind of got into sports psychology, because I was curious about those type of things. And then getting further into the field and, you know, going through some of the just the progressions, you know, as you kind of, you know, you get better through a career, start getting better jobs, better gigs, working with bigger clubs. There's so much more to sports psychology. So like, particularly with the Australian swim team, some of the guys we'll be working with would be, it's about career transition. You know, so some of these athletes have been on the swim team since they were 14 years old. And then they get to the end of their career where, you know, they're 28, almost 30. And if you don't make the time, you don't make the team. Simple as that.
Yep.
And when you don't make the team, you're losing part of your identity. You've done it for so long, and now you're not doing it anymore. That can become a real problem. And that's well documented in the news and stuff with a couple of swimmers, you know, that will remain nameless.
I think that goes with any sport.
Yeah.
You know, I can leave everyone else nameless, but I can definitely appreciate that I've been through that myself. So, yeah, it's you know, when you identify yourself as someone, whether you mean to or not, someone says, "What do you do for work?" and you're like, "Oh, I fight in the UFC." That's identifying yourself.
That's 100%.
You know, "Oh, I work for Queensland Health." That's identifying yourself. So, when you lose that, you're no longer the person that you just told everyone you were.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy, or the person that they see you as, but it's definitely easy to lose your identity. So what particularly do you focus on now as part of your job? Like, you talk about league and athletics and swimming, and do you have a certain field, like, or sport?
I just love competition.
Yeah.
I love competing. I love sport in general. There's so many things you can learn as a young person, you know, getting amongst some team sports, even individual sports. There's a lot of qualities of character that you develop: dedication, hard work, respect, sportsmanship, those type of things. I love that about sport. Right now, I'm the team sports psych for the Guam national soccer team.
Okay.
We're going through like World Cup qualifying right now, but obviously because of COVID, everything's been pushed back.
I'm 1-1 against Guam athletes.
Sorry?
I'm 1-1 against Guam athletes, by the way.
Yeah.
So Frank, is he Guam as well?
Bloody knuckleheads, mate, eh? Frank Camacho, he's from Mariana Islands.
Yeah, Camacho. I thought
But
it was Camacho.
but like fights out of Guam, like as in,
Yeah.
and John Tuck, by split decisions. Yeah, 1-1, lost one. Guam athletes, but super nice people.
Oh, super nice people.
Really humble.
You know, it's like we were talking about this the other day, and it's like a hybrid kind of culture between kind of Asian and Polynesian.
Yeah.
You know, but a really cool country. But I'm doing a lot of remote work with them. It's a lot of Skype stuff. You know, WhatsApp, FaceTimes, working with the head coach.
No Instagram.
No Instagram, no social media. I'm off the grid.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm getting on there.
Yeah, nice. So people won't be able to find you after this. It's just pop your head up and go again, eh?
Well, hanging around with these two, I think I might have to do that.
Yeah.
I might have to start getting on the grid.
Exactly, that's what we want to do. Like, obviously, sports psychology is super underrepresented in MMA, but super important.
Yeah.
Probably more important than anything. And yeah, like I said, with Fight IQ, we're trying to address all of those, you know, elements of what a complete combat athlete is. And yeah, nutrition, strength, rehabilitation, skill, and psychology is definitely one of those key factors. And even, you know, the UFC PI doesn't offer a sports psychology service. You know what I mean? It's so hard to find people there. And I think, you know, we stumbled across some articles on Marcell with some work he'd done with different teams and athletes and that, giving him a really good rap. And, you know, gave him a call and, yeah, it really clicked. And then we've been working with him to produce his course, the written content and that. And it's just unreal. Like, ties in the philosophy and, you know, the way of life and, you know, living by every win and loss. It's, you know, the journey and the process. And like you just said, all the positive benefits that you get out of sport. If you focus on that, you know, which is like what we do. We're in this for the long game and we love it. And we got, you know, good mates and everything like that. There's so much more to it than just, I lost that fight or I won that fight. Yeah, you know, so really excited to have Marcell and definitely I think, you know, you're looking to move in and, you know, probably like how you work via correspondence with these sports teams, having some kind of service like that for any athletes around the world that want to, you know, work on that part of their game as they should. Yeah,
well, I mean, there's definitely a need for it. I was going to stop competing after 4 losses. Yeah. And I seen someone, they weren't a sports psychologist, they were like a mindset coach. Mm-hmm. And it just changed the way I thought, basically. Yeah. And it was out of competition was my issue, not in competition. Well, it was life in general, as far as thought process of negativities go. Mm-hmm. But we just changed that and then went on a tear, signed with the UFC. So there's definitely a requirement for it, which is what makes it pretty cool having you on here, because hopefully a bunch of combat athletes out there, or athletes in general, will hear it and maybe, you know, if they've got any negativities, negative thoughts and stuff like that, then they'll jump on board and reach out to someone, whether it's you or someone else. There's definitely a need for it in the sport. So you had a few questions.
Yeah, well, I guess, like I said, looking through your content, man, there's a few of those keywords that always come up in fighting, and just thought it'd be cool to sort of have you go over those concepts, and then, yeah, like I said, you know, I've been training with Damo forever, and he's a very, very courageous fighter in the fight game, which everyone is, but, you know, he does everything. I think that's a great contrast to see, you know, someone who obviously can go and perform under extreme amounts of pressure and have those tough fights and still, you know, always hang in there and give it to them. And yeah, so I guess that, you know, flow is a massive term that we always hear, getting into flow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like what is flow?
The elusive
what is that?
Flow state.
Why do you want to be in flow? You know what I mean? What is flow?
Flow is like thinking without thinking. Like your brain is processing information constantly, you know, every moment of every second of every day. It's constantly processing information. When we think or we focus on things, you guys ever heard of that, what is it? Paralysis by analysis? You guys heard that before? The kind of, that cliche, you know, overthinking something and then you just kind of, you don't actually do anything and you just kind of get stuck. I think that's the idea of that. Well, that's the opposite of flow. So we want to be in a flow state, so it's everything becomes effortless. It's not you're not thinking. I think if you guys watch The Last Dance,
yeah, that
No.
Michael Jordan.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
It's worthwhile watching it, but there's a few examples in there where, you know, you've heard athletes talk about it before across multiple sports where, you know, time slows down. They could see things happening before they actually happened. But in the moment, they're not thinking at all. It's just natural instinct.
Yep.
But it's coupled with their preparation. So I think that's something else that, you know, needs to be addressed too, is we don't just want to be in a flow state. We need to prepare ourselves to the best of our ability, you know. And it's like, you know, that luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that kind of idea. So you want to prepare yourself to the best as best as you can, with your nutrition, your sleep, with your training, and, you know, going back to what you were talking about before, like having your own house in order outside of your sport is actually a really powerful way to help you get into a flow state, because there's not this external mind chatter that's pulling you in all these different directions on fight night.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer?
Yeah,
your
that makes
question?
sense.
Yeah,
makes sense.
because obviously so it's this state of flow is where you're going to perform optimally.
Yeah.
But then it's like you can't just sort of go, all right, I'm in flow now.
So preparing for that state of flow, like we're talking obviously the mental aspect of the game and preparing for it. How would you have guys, you know, in general, not specific to any sport, but how do people do that? Like, you know, I can physically prepare by going and doing jiu-jitsu, lifting weights, doing wrestling, judo, MMA, or anything else, right? Anything physically, right? But how does someone mentally prepare for competition? I mean, me personally, I train hard. And then if I feel like I'm not ready, I train harder until I tell myself that, I feel good. But physically, that can have a downfall as well. So how would you have guys mentally prepare? Like, what are some of the key things that guys would do?
I'm always hesitant to answer this question because it's not like a one-size-fits-all.
No, it's not. It's not specific. No, definitely.
So
that's why I said a general rule or some examples maybe. Without mentioning names, but of like particular sports on how you would get someone to do some mental preparation.
So we talked about the internal, external focus, part of the course content there, where, you know, some athletes like to be internally focused. So they do things that they think about the game plan. They think about what they need to do. They think about their opponent. They think about those things, and that's really helpful for them. But then there's other guys. I mean, you would have seen it before, you know, some NRL matches when they've got the cameras in the dressing rooms. There's guys with the headphones on. Some guys don't, and everyone's got their own kind of way of doing things. So a general guide would be to understand where you need to be in terms of your arousal. How pumped do you need to be before a fight? And you learn that through experience. Obviously, you know, in my opinion, preparation equals performance. So the better you prepare, the better you're going to perform. And on the night, if you become, overly anxious, if you start getting those symptoms of panic, in the lead up, to the fight or even the night before, these are red flags that you need to slow the system down. Your animal brain is hijacking the system. We need to slow it down. We want to conserve that energy. So at one of the clubs I was working with, we outlawed the word anxious, or nerves. You couldn't say I'm feeling nervous. You couldn't say I'm feeling anxious. If you felt that way, you had to use the word fuel. So I'd be in the dressing rooms and the boys like, "Hey, Mars, got a lot of fuel today, man." I'm like, "That's good, dude. Keep that in the fuel tank. Leave that for the field."
Yep.
So we, by using language another way, changing the way you frame what is actually happening within your body, because that feeling is an adrenaline rush. It's it's the release of hormones into the system. We don't want to stop that. That can be actually really helpful for your performance. It's important. You think about those extreme sports like base jumping and what's that, the gliding, the flying.
Yeah, the wingsuits.
Wingsuits.
Yeah, wingsuits. Like if those guys aren't in a flow state, they die.
Yeah.
Literally. But they're really pushing the boundaries, and I think probably mixed martial arts is the closest you're going to get to that. But also combat, and you're a veteran yourself, so you'd understand that as well.
Oh, 100%.
So that. I think a general point would be, if you're trying to get into a flow state, you won't get into it.
Yeah.
It's got to happen naturally. But you can cultivate the conditions in the lead up to a fight to increase the probability that will happen.
Yep.
By understanding yourself, understanding your body, understanding what you need. Have you seen those videos of Masvidal early in his career, where he'd roll through Macca's and eat cheeseburgers and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like early in his career, that kind of worked for him. He doesn't do that now.
No.
So he's learned to make those adjustments and adapt over time. I think I remember one he's eating ice cream for breakfast or something.
Yeah.
But that worked for him.
Yeah.
That kept him in a state where he was, for lack of a better term, he felt balanced. He felt good.
It was like something he did.
Yeah.
And if he didn't do it, then he's like, "I haven't had my ice cream for breakfast."
Yeah.
Which is, for most people, it's probably a weird thing, but when you talk about psychology of preparation from a psychological point of view, you need to do some of those things.
Yeah.
You just got to do them.
I
wear the same cup and the same mouth guard for every fight.
Yeah.
And it sits in a bag in the cupboard until I get another fight. I never change it.
Yep.
It's just...
And I think that's a really good example of, see, some people would look at that and see it and talk about it like, "Oh, you're too superstitious," or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's part of your routine. I would just look at that as a reflection of, that's how I prepare for a fight. This is what I do. And the more things I can keep the same, the more creature comforts I can surround myself with in the lead up to a fight, the less stress I'm going to impact on the system.
Yeah.
So when I get to fight night, the less stress that's on me, more likely I'm going to hit a flow state and not be paralyzed by analysis.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, it's when you're talking about competition, especially at the highest level, it's such a fine balance between stress and no stress.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, you can just, you can't just buy a freaking fitted mouth guard wherever you want in the world. Do you know what I mean? And I watched this Embedded series with Daniel Cormier.
Yeah.
And he's packing his bag. Like, they do the Embedded from the house all the way through to fight day, right? And he's packing his bag, and he took his mouth guard out of his luggage and put it in his backpack. And he's like, "I can never pack my mouth guard in my luggage in case I lose it, because it's the only thing I can't replace." And it was so interesting, because that's like a massive stress during fight week. Maybe not in the UFC, because they've got people that make mouth guards for you, but in general, people don't have a mouth guard guy traveling around with them. Do you know what I mean? Sports don't have a mouth guard guy. Like, athletes go and get their own. So that's like a big stress when you're 3 days out from competition trying to find a mouth guard that you don't want to choke on or gag on.
Yeah.
And people probably think that that's like a small issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's not during fight week.
Yeah.
So I pack my mouth guard in my backpack now. Yeah. It's because it's such a kind of it eliminates any possibility of that stress, because it's always with you. So, yeah, there's so many details to that mental preparation, hey?
Routines as well.
Yeah.
A good routine.
Yeah, I mean, look at the way I
like
cut weight.
Yeah.
I make my drinks and everything before I cut any weight. They sit in the fridge in the hotel for like 2 days. Yeah, can't be underprepared.
Preparation.
I cruise around fight week. The first thing I do when I land in a country is I've got to go and get all the stuff I need for 3 days later because I can't be running around last minute trying to find them. Yeah.
So I guess, like, obviously preparation, so there's, like, specific preparation. But then, like you said, like how much does, you know, like if you've had a fight with your missus and then, like, your general stress levels are running higher. Or, you know, like, I'm a big believer in, like, when I was younger, everything was just training, nothing else. That's first priority. But now I sort of think, like, we're not machines. We are human beings.
Right.
And, like, I function a lot better if, like, good relationship, good mates that I see every now and then, see my family every now and then. I'm very fortunate. I got good mates that I train and work with. So I can sort of mix a lot of those bases together. But yeah, that different approach. Like when you're young, you can sort of put in like a few years where it's like, no, I'm not going to ever go out. I'm not going to ever do this. Like I'm not going to have a missus. I'm just going to do this. I'm not going to work. But it's like, you know what I mean? Like those other, like the brain model.
Yeah.
You know, like I guess if everything else is good in your life, that's going to reduce the stress of that one event sort of thing. Like the psychosocial model, I guess, is what.
The psychosocial model is another one. But I think it's so easily overlooked because, well, sometimes we avoid those uncomfortable conversations with, you know, external factors or engaging with those. But we avoid those by just focusing on training. If I just train harder, everything's going to be better. If I just train harder, if I just keep doing this, and we get kind of fixated on that thought process. But really, like we kind of talked about before, if you get your house in order and you've identified the different parts of your life where you could make some improvements, or, you know, you need to have a difficult conversation with someone to let go of something that you're holding on to for whatever reason, or, you know, coming up with a timetable. You know, if you've got kids, or, you know, date night with the girlfriend, or, you know, putting some of those things in place can really help your performance, even though they might not be specifically directly involved in your fight preparation. Looking at yourself as taking a holistic approach to your performance is probably, you know, what's coming into the fore right now, particularly in like, you can be the greatest athlete in the world, but if you're not in a good headspace, well, you're not going to perform at your best. You might still win, but it won't be your best. Yep. You know? And I think that's sometimes, easily overlooked as well, is those little things outside the sport, like what you're eating, like your sleep routines, like your relationships, like your meaningful relationships that you're surrounded with, whether it's a girlfriend, or your parents, or your brothers and sisters, or just family in general, social interactions with your friends. All these things help to reduce stress, because we're social beings. It's important to interact. Some of us like to, be a bit more distant, which is fine. I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. And that's why we kind of keep going back to, you need to be able to develop that insight, understand who you are, what you're about, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But sometimes those questions are really difficult to answer. And sometimes you don't like the answer, so you avoid facing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So that was the internal, that's what you were talking about before, internal, external.
Yeah.
Kind of covers both.
Yeah.
So did you have any more?
Yeah, no, I think that just highlights, like, for young fighters and that out there, like, we're both, Damo's coaching lots of people now, and I guess, there are young kids at the gym that, I think we're both careful, like, out of just like, oh yeah, they're a fighter who comes, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you can see those same struggles with some of them where it's like, they are giving up other things, and I guess it just reiterates that, like, you function optimally when you've taken care of your house, which isn't your physical health, like that's it as well, but it's all those other things that make up a healthy, functioning human being that it's motivated. Otherwise you're going to burn out, you're not going to be happy, you're going to have, problems with your mental health and all that kind of thing. So it's like the best guy isn't the guy that's in the gym 3 times a day, every day of the year, But, it's the guy who's consistently training and training intelligently and has the right people around him and the right support network and has a little bit of a job to earn some money. So he's, you know what I mean? It's not everything.
Like you said, like having the right people around you. I think what separates the good coaches and the great coaches is the great coaches understand that you're dealing with a human being.
Yep.
Not just a fighter.
People aren't robots, man. You can't just be like, you have to do this. It doesn't. You can tell them what is better for their mental and physical preparation, but if they need to fix something, then that's up to them to really fix it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big aspect of coaching.
Yeah.
Is understanding that people are human beings and people have a life, and not everyone's us. Not every single guy that comes into your gym is going to be the next Conor McGregor. Not every guy that comes into your gym. Nah, some people just want to have a fight. Some people just want to. Some people don't want to spar.
Yeah,
I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, some people have got to put a suit on and face 50 people on Monday morning, and they don't want a black eye from Thursday night. So, we definitely understand that, and that's a big part of what I do with my gym. But some guys, you can see it. They work, but they're just doing everything physically to get there. It's just about letting them know sometimes that it's cool to have a night off. Yeah, I do hang shit on them about it when they're like, "Sorry, I can't make it Friday. I got a birthday dinner." I'm like, dinner starts at 7:30, trains at 5:15. Yeah. Anyway, no, but I do hang shit on them a bit, but definitely need humor's massive for me, but but they need to understand that that's okay because that's what's going to make them happy. Yeah, and I've been through that. Like, I can't go to dinner because that restaurant doesn't have steamed broccoli. Yeah. I can't go to a birthday party because all they're going to do is eat cake and shit and drink beers. I've been through it all. And that doesn't make your house happy either. Like the house is disjointed when you say that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, I can definitely appreciate that. You said earlier, you mentioned it about yourself not being able to bounce back from a bad loss. You see, I mean, you were obviously younger when that happened, but like, I don't think it really matters. But what I find interesting about combat sports athletes is when they get to a certain age, like, there's guys that get knocked out a few times, whatever, and everyone goes, they're chinny. I personally believe that's bullshit. I don't think that that's a thing at all. Maybe if they were fighting every 2 months and get knocked out bad, that's a different story. But if they took a year off and got knocked out again, then took a year off, I don't think that I think it's psychological. Yeah. Like, I think you can get knocked out bad, but you can bounce back from that regardless of what your age is if you prepare for it properly. But I feel like they get knocked out so bad, they've got all the psychological aspects of, am I over it? Have I been in too many wars? And then they do things that are wrong, or maybe they get desperate for a win. Yeah. Then they get knocked out again. And I feel like, like I said, I could be wrong, but I tend to like steer away from their chinny and more that they're older, they're hesitant, and then they get hit with a punch that would have knocked them out 10 years ago as well. But they fight different because psychologically they start thinking like, I'm older, am I done? And then you get all the negative thoughts because psychologically they're in a different place. Yeah. Would you agree with that to an extent?
100%. Like, I'm having flashbacks about what happened to
me
while
you're I look like my favorite fighter is Robbie Lawler, like of all time. The way the guy fought at 18, 19, 20 in the UFC, went away to Strikeforce and then came back and fought like a completely different person, but still with the same aggression and intent to finish the fight. Yeah, but he was more measured, more technical. And now he's on like 4 losses in a row. And I look at a guy like he's been through some insane wars, Carlos Condit, Roy McDonald, Johnny Hendricks, like the list goes on of 5-round wars. And even though he's a killer and he's got that killer instinct, surely there's he's not chinny by any means. He doesn't get knocked out. But there's got to be a hesitation in just getting into a war again. Yeah. Like it gets more and more measured, but then that's got to be psychological to a degree.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
I think like after after my really, brutal loss, I didn't stop fighting. I had seven more fights after that, but I lost them all on points because I was too hesitant.
Yeah, because you
I was
lose
too
that,
worried.
I'm going to hurt someone instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can definitely relate to that. And I think it's difficult because everybody's different. But I think you're right in terms of how your preparation is the key. And when you're having those kind of thought processes and that mind chatter going, well, that's taking you away from being in a flow state. You're obviously overthinking it. There's something else going on there. You're overstimulating the amount of negativity. Not that we all have to be positive. We don't have to feel good we're not going to feel good every day. Sometimes you have to turn up and go through the motions. It's just required. It's part of the lifestyle, I guess, of being a fighter.
Yeah.
You got to keep turning up. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is turning up. But I think that's why breathing and meditation they're such powerful tools. But I don't think they're used that much. A lot of people in my experience anyway, that have engaged in learning how to breathe properly with diaphragmatic breathing, they're far more effective in regulating the system. They can manage their emotions, they can manage their arousal levels, they can stay composed in stressful situations. Have you found that? Do you guys
I don't
breathing
meditate.
techniques, or
My mindset coach tells me to meditate every month.
what's that?
I've never meditated. I get told to meditate a
Yeah.
lot, but I don't. I just
Well,
feel
here's
like
the thing,
killing
you
shit.
probably do,
So,
but you're not aware of it, right?
Yeah.
So meditation can take many forms.
man, I think I agree with you. I think people who do, breathing exercises and all that sort of stuff, you see them, they're pretty calm,
Mm-hmm.
in otherwise high adrenaline situations.
Yeah.
But I never really tried it myself. I probably should. I might not listen to the crowd when I fight.
So I guess that's kind of like breathing techniques and meditation are tools to help regulate the anxiety that you might have from a loss. But I guess if you have a loss, so if you were to work with yourself at that point, how would you go about addressing it? So you'd go, why did I get knocked out? Do you know, was it a technical error? Was it in the process? I love when you set out the goals in your course, man, you had those 3 levels. I think it was outcome, performance, and process.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's if you work out, you've got to untangle that situation don't you, from it. You got to go, what happened? Did I just make a mistake, or was he just better than me? What was missing? What skill set do I need to work? And then you go back to that whole preparation thing. So you're sort of hitting it from both sides. You got the preparation, but then obviously there are some techniques that you can take, on the night of the fight or whatever to calm down. That you got different tools there, don't you?
Yeah.
What sort of what's a general process that you go about? Would that be it? Is it, let's evaluate this loss, what happened, what are we going to do to fix those technical problems? And then we're also going to give you some breathing techniques. We're going to do some, some meditation, or, I want to talk to you about visualization as well, but that's probably, go off on some tangents there. But yeah, how do you deal with yourself at that point?
Oh, I wish I knew what I knew now.
Yep.
I wish I knew what I knew now back then. I think, it would have been different. I don't know if I would have been any better, but I think I would have felt better about what I was doing.
Right.
Because I didn't have a problem stepping in the ring. That wasn't the issue. I wasn't able to pull out the performance I was looking for on the night, when it counted.
Yep.
I could go around to any gym in Sydney and spar, get my different looks, different ways. It didn't bother me. We'd put the headgear on, whack the gloves on, and just, 6 or 7 rounds with whoever. But on fight night, something would change. It would be a complete different shift. So if I was going to work with myself back then, I'd be looking at developing a pre-performance routine. What am I doing the night before? How am I spending my time? And actually going through each hour, what's happening in each hour, but not having it so rigid that you have to stick to each thing, because life happens, right? Things come up. But if you've got a general guide of what you're going to be doing in the lead up to the fight, then there's contingency plans if things do come up, and that helps to reduce the stress, take the the excess anxiety away from thinking about doing this, that, and the other. Like you kind of talked about it. So you first time you land in a country, you're buying everything you need for the next 3 days, so you don't have to worry about it. So once that's done, that's tick on to the next. It's not even in the thought process anymore. So that's probably what I would do, is come up with some sort of pre-performance routine for myself, learn a breathing technique. You could think of some of the greatest fighters in history. Bruce Lee meditated. He did breathing techniques. Hickson Gracie, you guys seen the documentary?
Yeah.
That was a big part of his training.
Yeah.
Animalistic movements, yoga, those yoga breathing techniques, which I think is also because of the jiu-jitsu as well, because you're putting yourself into positions where if you can breathe, you can probably hold on a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So learning how to use that muscle is a really powerful tool, but also in regulating the system, managing your arousal. Because if you're burning up too much energy, then you got nothing left for the last round or whatever it is, whatever you're fighting in. So it's also energy management, I guess. I would have tried to teach myself how to manage my energy levels in the lead up to a fight, so I don't burn up all the adrenaline in the dressing rooms before I walk out. And by the time the bell rings, I'm already spent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, because that's right. It's a massive, like gym heroes. So it's a massive thing in combat. How, like, there's people that are unbelievable in the gym, and then when they fight, they're terrible at fighting. Like we've known lots of people like that. But not just looking good on the pads.
There's gym fighters and there's fighters, and that's not like gym fighters as in fighting in the gym. It's just like some guys perform really, really well without pressure, and then with pressure, they turn to custard, and that's like you can maybe adjust to that, but then there's other guys who in the gym maybe don't perform the best that they could, but then when they fight, they're like, it's like they're free.
Yeah.
And they just let go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's psychology.
Is it behavior? Is that something you can teach yourself? Is that kind of what you guys are getting at?
Well, like, as in, I think you sort of answered that, like, in your, because I was alluding to, like, do you address, was it technical errors and take that approach to now you're confident, because it's like, you need to know what to do, when to do it or how to do it, and then if you don't win, it's like, it was performance anxiety, you self-sabotage yourself. Like, I know that's a great psychology book that I've read. His three...
Fuel, Performance fuel. Can't use anxiety.
Yeah.
But if you've got the skill, like I say, if you're in the gym and like, I can technically hang in with these guys, so why am I losing? Do you know what I mean? And like that, so I think that's a personality where some people have that, like they go out there and that they can perform well under pressure and that, but obviously there's a lot of people that don't. But I think you answered that with, like, that's the breathing techniques, and that you need to learn how to regulate your
system, man.
Physiology.
I got weird pre-fight regimes.
Yeah.
Really, I pack my bag 7 days before I fly.
Yeah.
And I unpack it every day and repack it again. It's
Yeah.
weird because I don't want to forget anything.
Yeah.
So it's.
But if you didn't do that,
oh man, it would mess me up.
Right.
Like I would be panicking, and I'd have to unpack it and pack it like a half dozen times in the same day. And then that's all I would think about, and it consumes me. And then, I've got like things I do on the flight, and then things I do when I get into the country. And then once it's all done, it's pretty much, I'm pretty good then. I can just I just cut weight. But then I do that a certain way too, and everything's like pretty flexible, but everything is pretty much routine.
Do you think that's from your military experience? Like
I think
in that kind of way?
Well, I think I was kind of like it anyway. My dad was military.
Right.
And so we had not for a long, like I was like 3 or 4 or something when he got out, but like he just kind of had decent routine in his life, and it was like breakfast, work, home, snacks, dinner, bed. Like my whole life was like that.
Yeah.
There was 7 kids in the house, and it was like the door swung open, get out of bed at 6:30, make your own bed. You had breakfast, you had to make your own breakfast, clean up, bus at 8:05, off to school, back home, snacks, play outside, bath, dinner, bed. It was like my whole life was like that.
Yeah.
That's how I was raised.
Yeah.
But so I think a lot of it's contributed to that. But at the same time, I think the military probably made it a little bit worse, like as in better, worse, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Because I don't do well without routine. Like I need routine in my life. COVID was a perfect example. like 3 weeks in, I was going crazy, as most people were. And so I was like, I need to do something that makes the day the same.
Yeah.
So even though every day was different, I set my alarm at 4:30, got up and walked my dog for an hour and a half. My son doesn't get up till 7, so I get that out of the way. And then my day can go whichever way it wants because it started the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's a good thing and sometimes I think I'm crazy. But it's weird. And then, so my whole life's like that. I have to train at the same time. I'm not, I don't do too well with like, oh, we'll move it to here or we'll move it to there. But routine's a big thing. I think that it has a psychological flow over
big
to
time.
everything else as well. Because if things are in order, like if your house is in order, then everything's in order, right?
Yeah.
So
everything kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. A lot of the most successful people in the world talk about having routines.
Yeah.
Starting the same way every day. Having a plan, having those things in place all the time. And things will come up from time to time and you make your adjustments and you might not be, happy about it, but you kick on, right? You keep rolling forward.
Yeah, things always change. I mean, for probably the better part of 10 years, I trained at night time. I don't train at night anymore. I mean, I coach, but even there was a period there for about 2 years where I didn't train at night time. That took some adjustment, because it's like for 10 years, if between 5:30 and 7:30, you're like, do one thing for 10 years, Monday to Friday, and then you stop it. And even though you're doing the same amount of hours of training during the day now, as you were doing a day session and a night session, you're now doing 2 day sessions. Psychologically, you feel bad sitting on the couch because you're like, fuck, I'm being lazy, man. What am I doing? I'm cutting corners here. But you're not. You're doing the same amount of work.
Yeah.
You just change your routine.
Yeah.
And so then you got to adapt to that. And, you have to do it because you have to make those changes because the changes are for the better. Yeah. But it definitely takes a lot to get your head around it. That's for sure.
Yeah. It takes a lot of self-awareness, right? Like to understand what's actually going on within your mindset, within, your behavior and being able to identify, what is going on? Why am I feeling different? What's happening? And being able to figure that out requires a level of self-awareness, but also requires you to be objective about it. You got to be honest with yourself. Like, am I being lazy right now, or am I just changing things up?
Yeah.
Am I still getting the same volume of training in this week, or if I, found a way to cut a corner? And sometimes there's, again, difficult questions to ask, difficult to be honest about, but once the truth is on the table, you can deal with it.
Yeah.
Some people find that really, really difficult.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously you guys have talked about it already, you're working together. So what are you working together to provide?
Yes, so like the whole Fight IQ platform, is based around the fundamental knowledge and concepts of your additional supplementary training areas. So, I was telling Marcell the other day, 5 years ago, no one used a nutritionist.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was like you'd be made fun of for having a nutritionist. Now everyone's like, oh, you need a nutritionist. Like, you're selling yourself short. Like, don't be so unprofessional. Go see someone, get a meal plan, learn how to cut weight properly. Yeah. Done thing. And everyone's realizing that with all these other areas. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can make massive gains if you've never lifted a weight before, or get in the gym and you get way more gains than you're going to get from time on the mat because you've already trained for 5-10 years. Yeah. So not that, I'm a big believer that skill, is the fundamental block and technique outweighs everything. But at a professional level, you should be doing everything. And as a healthy human being, you should be doing everything. You should know how to eat right, think right, keep your body healthy. And you should know how to develop skills. Like, it's the same thing. That's why it's like, know one thing, know all things. Book of 5 Rings. It's like, exactly. And that's why I think people that have put time into getting good at something understand what it takes, and then they're able to get good at other things much quicker than someone who never has really spent a good amount of time going through that learning process. So in the case of Marcell, it's psychology, obviously that being his field, and giving people that. It's like routines. Like, I've taken so much out of this, just going like, why does that word keep coming up? Why does that keep? And obviously you can apply that different ways, but it's like, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't have a routine, a pre-fight routine, a training routine, then you need to do that. You know, whether it's you have a dynamic warm-up that you do before every single training session, you know, in your locker room, okay, I've got half an hour before I fight, you start doing your dynamic. And now it's like your physiology goes, oh, yeah, this is what we do every single day.
Yeah.
Like you say, I think that's such a powerful thing that you can go and apply. So it's like we're delivering that information.
Okay.
So there's a course. Well, how can you go work with Marcell? First, nobody in MMA in the world is really out there as a sports psychologist.
No.
Like I said, we couldn't find anybody, and we're very fortunate to come across Marcell. And then who has access, like who can pay? Like amateur fighters, professional fighters, like, you know, for a professional, he works with teams.
Yeah.
You know
it's
what I mean?
hard,
At
man.
a professional team. So they've got the money to go, well, he's going to work with 50 of our guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can pay him for this. But a fighter can't go, oh, yeah, here's a couple grand. Can we go do weekly sessions for 10 weeks?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas this platform, I think, can connect them, and we will be able to provide services like that, or our experts will be able to do their own thing and offer those services, but they'll also be able to go, here is the fundamental knowledge.
So they'll get the tools from your program
Yep.
that they can then go away and work on themselves as individuals.
Yep. Then if they've
Which-
got a fight camp or something, they'll be able to communicate.
Which makes sense. I mean, the when you talked about the nutritionist like 5 years ago, everyone was like, "Oh, I can't afford a nutritionist." Like, they thought that was going to cost them like thousands of dollars for a nutritionist. You know, you get paid $1,000 if you're lucky to fight in the local circuit, unless you're a name. So yeah, it's everyone seems to think it's, you know, psychology. It's going to cost me $200 for a half an hour session, and not going to be able to afford it. But you guys are providing that platform at an affordable rate that they, you know, and there's work in it for them. And they're not just going to go and see someone who's going to give them the tools, but they're going to get the tools and they need to go away and work on themselves.
Yep.
So obviously they need to put the work in, but it's going to come at a rate that's affordable for everyone to do.
It's accessible.
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
And where will they find that at when it comes out? You've obviously got other programs on there at the moment, at Fight IQ on Instagram and Facebook.
Yep, at Fight IQ is the site, and the link goes to the homepage. All the courses are up, and it's aiming towards the complete combat athlete, which is addressing everything that an athlete should be doing, all those other areas, all those supplementary areas.
And the psychology aspect to be coming in the future, obviously.
Yep.
You're just working on it now.
Yeah, Marcell's down, and we've done his filming.
Yeah, sweet.
Yesterday, and
so if you had some advice, not just combat athletes, but just say young athletes in general, going into any kind of professional sport or even amateur, and you could round down, you know, 2 or 3 things that they should do. What would you say they should do? Just 2 or 3 things that is going to help them.
One is you got to have fun.
Yeah.
At all levels I've worked at, the most elite levels to the park footy stuff. All my clients perform better when they're enjoying themselves. So you got to enjoy yourself. You got to have fun. If you're not having fun, something's wrong. That's another flag, and try to figure out what that is. So that'd be my first thing: is have fun, enjoy what you're doing. The second would be, sometimes we overlook the fundamentals. There's this idea that we eat food to feed the body. That's a misconception. You eat food to feed your brain. Your brain regulates the system. That's the key. Your brain is functioning better, you're going to make better decisions, and your body's going to function better. So your nutrition is really key, but you want to be making sure that you're eating for brain function. And the last one would be sleep. Now, some people, would argue that you need 8 hours of sleep, but there's a lot of people that don't need 8 hours, It's
doesn't sleep.
Yeah, like it's like I've been on some teams where the physiologists say you need to get 8 hours sleep, and we get into a staff meeting. I'm like, I don't agree with that, and they're like, no, this is what the research says. I'm like, man, I go think about it like this: there's 24 hours in a day. You're sleeping for 8. If you did that for your whole life, you're asleep for a third of your life. Like, does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't want to be asleep for a third of my life. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah,
I get that.
As a veteran with PTSD,
Yeah.
I don't sleep very well anyway.
Yeah.
But
you still
even when
function, right?
even when I'm asleep, and I've still made it to the highest level and perform well.
Yeah.
My body's still cut weight, and I've still done everything perfect without sleep.
Yeah.
You know, like I've had times where I've gone weeks and weeks and weeks on end with like 4 hours a night.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't agree. I think that needs to be consistent.
Yeah, consistent.
know,
Again, going
I
back
think
to the
like if you
routines.
fell asleep at midnight and got up at 4 a.m. to work out, but you did it every night of the week,
Yeah,
at least your body will regulate to that.
that's right.
You can't have 14 hours one night and 3 the next.
Yeah.
I think that's what messes a lot of people up.
And your nutrition has a lot to do with that too. You know, if you're eating, you know, what's required for your system, because it's not the same for everybody, right? You won't need as much sleep. You won't need as much rest because the system is functioning optimally, which again improves your brain function. But that would be it, I would reckon. You know, there's 2 or 3 things. Like 1, enjoy yourself, have fun, make sure you're eating good food to function like the brain, or to improve your brain function, and keep a good sleep routine. If that's 4 hours a night, it's 4 hours a night. But like you said, if you're keeping that consistent, the body's going to stay regulated.
Yeah, that's a real cool thing. That just so because everyone, like, again, it's the stigma of like, oh, psychologist, like I'm going to get some, it's fighting. It's like, oh, don't be a pussy, go fight.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like that had nothing to do with like being a tough guy or not being a tough guy.
No.
It's like take care, you know what I mean? Like have fun.
Yeah.
Eat right for your brain and sleep. Like that's very, you know what I mean? It's very useful and very practical, and it's not what I think people think when they think, I'm going to be told like visualize myself with a crown on my head in front of it. I get that there's probably a place for that kind of thing, but it's like...
I mean, like, I think you look at the NBA and NFL, they all those biggest clubs have sports psychologists on the staff.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of visualization stuff for free throw shooting, for place kicking, for spikes. They do that, but it's trained as a skill, not a novelty.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is not everyone needs to see a sports psychologist. You know, I wouldn't say that. I think everyone needs a general basic understanding, like the kind of information we've got in the course. There's some really basic tools there that you can use to identify what your strengths are, how to apply them to yourself to, you know, enhance your performance or get more out of your training. I think there's some general principles that can be really useful for everybody. But there comes a point where it's not like going to see a physio or an ex-physiologist or a nutritionist or something like that, where, you know, if you have an injury, you go see the physio. If you want a specific kind of exercise regime, you see the ex-phys. You know, if you need to cut weight correctly and you know, without harming the system, you go see a registered professional in nutrition to do that. With psychology, it has to be a choice. So, you know, if you're just coming to see me because someone told you to and you don't know why, it's not going to help, right? It's a really broad field, and I think that's why there's so much stigma around psychologists. Like, if you go see the psychologist, there's something wrong with you. Or, you know,
look, I can talk, I guess, a little bit about that from an athlete point of view.
Yeah.
My perspective back in the day was, I don't need to see a psychologist because the army prepared me for war.
Yeah.
And I'm good to fight.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, and I still think about that today. Like, when people go, man, like, you don't take a backward step, I'm like, I'm literally going to fucking die in there, like, if I have to.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just how I fight. But there was you know, from the competition side and not the having wars and fighting side, if you take enough losses, then you start to think negatively.
Yeah.
And so I never was like, I needed a sports psychologist. I always thought there was a place for it, but it was never really me. And then I said something negative. It was to one of my sponsors about, you know, whether I'd fight again on, and he said, look, man, before you walk away, can you go just have a chat to him? So I went and had a chat to Sean O'Gorman. He's not a sports psychologist. He wrote a book, and he runs the Strong Life Project. And I just sat down with him, and man, literally, I've probably seen him, like, I still talk to him now. I messaged him the other day about some stuff, and he just helps me here and there about thought processes. And I spoke to him for a whole camp. I seen him every week, 8 weeks, 10 weeks in a row or something like that. And really, out of it, what I took was the same thing I tell everyone now. What other people think about you is none of your business. Like, literally that saying. Yeah. He said that to me in the first session, which was 2.5 hours, and it's the only thing I remember. And then every other session after that, still to this day, like, it's all written down, but I still don't remember any of it. That's the only phrase out of everything that I remember. And I had to say that, same as you said with when people say they're anxious, they have to use the word fuel. When I used to think, I wonder what that person thinks about me, I used to have to say, what they think about me is none of my business. And it was like weeks. And I was like, fuck, I feel so good, man.
Yeah.
I feel good. I feel free.
Yeah.
The negative thoughts of what other people thought about me used to consume me. And now I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And
you change your relationship with it.
yeah. And so from an athlete point of view, I never would have went and seen someone for no reason if I was winning and everything was going good.
Yeah, there's no need.
But then when I knew that I was in a position where I needed answers and I don't have the answers to everything, I went and seen someone. And then, we don't see each other now, but he's there for me to call and text whenever I need to.
Yep.
And he works with a bunch of people that I've sent to him as well. But it's just like, I think sometimes it's like you said, it's not for everyone, but then you don't need to do it constantly either.
No.
You just go, you get the answers that you don't have. It's like reading a book, looking for information. You get the answers and then you make the changes and then you go about your business. So, that's from an athlete point of view.
Yeah. And no, I appreciate you sharing that because it does really highlights the how powerful it can be, when it's done correctly. So, I think some of the best sessions I've ever had with, some high profile athletes, I haven't really said anything. I think a lot of the time it's an opportunity, it's an outlet, it's someone outside the circle that they can talk about anything with. And through verbalizing and articulating what's going on for them mentally, they're already making solutions themselves. So I think, the best sports psychs, they know how to listen. I think that would be probably my strength is I know how to listen to someone and just get the story and not have to throw solutions at them like this is how you fix it, you got to do this, you got to do that. That's not really what it's about. It's about helping you become more independent, being more self-driven, to identify how you can become a problem solver rather than being the problem, and finding solutions. But we all have the capacity to do that, right? So it's not like So some of the one-liners I like to say is like, you're not broken. I'm not trying to fix you. That's not the issue here. Yeah. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you're functioning, you're alive, you're breathing, the system is fine. Let's just talk it out. Tell me what's going on. And then by them verbalizing whatever's going on, they start to figure out that what they're thinking is not rational.
Because when you think about it, you're not saying it.
Yeah.
You're just thinking about it and then you start all these ideas bounce around. But when you say it and it comes out as words, you're like, that doesn't make any fucking sense what I just said.
Right.
Or you say it and you go, oh man, I know the answer to that.
Yes.
100%. That happens sometimes when you're coaching or whatever and you're like, someone asks you a question. If you're thinking about it, sometimes when you start talking about it, you kind of change your direction on the answer because it's coming out and you're like, oh, actually, it's like this. And
And we all have the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
My supervisor, one of my first supervisors, and I still think about it. So this is probably one of the things I remember from uni was she said, never underestimate the power of listening. It can be a really powerful tool. And like I said, some of the best sessions, I haven't said anything, and they'll be like, thanks, Mars. I feel so much better now.
Yeah. And you're like, no worries, man. Thanks for that. Yeah, cool. Well, man, I mean, we're just on the hour, so we might wrap it up. But I definitely appreciate you coming on and having a chat to us. And I'm not sure if you want people to reach out to you, but if you do, you can let them know where.
I'm happy for people to reach out to me.
Whereabouts?
I'm going to be based in Sydney.
Yeah. They can't find you on social media. Where do they find you?
Well,
we'll be able to soon. We'll set up follow Fight IQ.
Follow Fight IQ, guys, and you'll
be putting out all of Marcell's deets and services and ways you can work with him.
And again, really the whole game's about just getting as many tools as possible. So they can jump on Fight IQ and grab the tools, and then they can go from there. So that'd be good. Thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate it. It's an aspect of the game that many people don't utilize, and many people should. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. Thanks, Aaron.
Welcome.
All right, guys. The Wireless Podcast, episode 9 will be dropping soon. Thanks for joining us.